or fail. And we're back here once again with another episode of the MSK show, and this is going to be episode 261. So I hope you guys had a great day, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend that is ahead of you. And in this episode of the MSK show, I am going to be having a conversation with Michael Bancroft. This is going to be his first appearance on the MSK show. Been wanting to actually have him on the show for quite some time, but his Twitter DMs were off apparently. And he was like, you know what? I'm not going to take peasants like MSK DMing me. Actually, it's literally word for word what he said. No, all jokes aside, if you guys don't actually know who this is, he's a very famous person in the indie comic book space where he brings people on his channel and launches their books. He also does his own indie comic book as well. Is he really Comicsgate? Who knows anymore, actually, at this point. He just honestly, at this point, he is just, in indie comic books without the labels, and he just wants to make books and make people happy. Isn't that true?
That's pretty much exactly it.
Yeah. So before we get into, talking about indie comic books and all that stuff, whenever you have a second appearance or third appearance, on the show in the future, at least you won't have to do your origin story again, because as you know, in the first book, you got to do like an origin story. You got to set up the hero. He has to, maybe not get the girl at that moment. He's got to maybe not beat the villain and all that stuff. So let's start with your origin story, then we'll move into like comic books and the indie comic stuff. So how was your life growing up? Because you're actually not from the United States. People forget you're actually in Australia. So were you always
hear it in my accent? I am Australian. Born in the 80s.
Okay.
What's that?
You were born in Australia too?
Born in Australia, born and bred. Born in the 80s. Grew up, in those crazy times pre-internet. Always did like art and stuff like that, but never really took it that seriously. I got into comics in like when I was 13 or so. But I don't know if you know, but like in the 90s, it all went kind of sideways, and a lot of stuff went bankrupt. So I kind of fell out of it for a long time. I just did the normal thing. Found a job, got married, and then later on in life, I was like, you know what? I want to get back to that comic stuff.
Wait a minute. This man got married, had some kids. What is that, like a 1980s thing? You getting married, having some kids, and a wife? Yeah. I heard that's a standard for like people back in the day.
Yeah, people don't do that anymore, I hear. It's like, that's old-fashioned.
Wait, no, like I was gonna follow up to what you just said there. Is that a thing in Australia too? Because in America, I'm pretty sure you've seen the statistics that people are not really getting married anymore. Is that a thing in Australia too? Like people on average are just not getting married and having kids.
It's exactly the same. Like,
really? That's crazy. Oh god,
it's all over the world. Pretty much.
People aren't having kids enough. People aren't getting married. I always blame the women. That's just me. The quality of women have become such garbage that it just turned all the dudes off.
Yeah, they have their share of blame. I was very blessed to marry a very good woman, conservative woman, traditional values, all the good stuff. So, no, I lucked out. But I worry for my kids.
Well, because the thing is, because you said you married a woman who was conservative. People back in the day don't actually understand this. Like, your time period of when you actually married your wife, women were more traditionally in like a church environment, and people have basically shitted on Christianity and God and being a housewife and settling down for so much that, that type of upbringing just isn't there anymore. Do you think that upbringing actually was better than what is currently now? Because it even was proven statistically back then women were happier. Just
100%. Yeah, 100%. It's all gone sideways, and you only have to look around. And I mean, I'm out of that whole scene now, like dating or whatever. Have been for a very long time, but I like to look in and see what's going on, and it is a nightmare. The whole thing has gone sideways. We live in clown world, and I don't know if anyone can fix it at this point.
Yep, because that's the thing is women have to understand they're like the gatekeepers of sex. Like men literally can't do anything with you unless you allow it. And to be fair, I guess technically, like I said before, men have their own play in it as well, because technically men are the one that make whores by sleeping with them. I think it's a combination of both. I think the main problem is like people aren't really synergistic anymore. They don't really sit down and go like, okay, like before I marry this person, as a guy, you should do this before you want to be girlfriends with any girl. Actually think in your head, can I talk to this person in my highs and lows? And if my days are going good or bad, like, do I want to be around this person for, as literally as the marriage says, till death do us part. So literally, either she croaks first or you do. So, most people don't think about that. Most people are just thinking about, I want to bang this chick or girl, because like I want to bang this dude and I want to leave.
Remember, people of my generation, we grew up, we were actually well into adulthood by the time social media even existed.
Right. Yeah.
I was probably like 27 or something when people were like, hey, join this new site, Facebook. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? And I think social media is like the thing that has just unraveled everything. Like, it's good for some things, obviously, but for society and civilization and getting together, and it's been a disaster.
Like for women, like literally the average looking girl anyone can think of in their life that might be a legit 4 out of 10, it now has like 30 to 50 guys in her DMs asking to get with her, and that makes her ego just go
so she
insane.
Thinks she's a 10 now.
She
tries to get with the 10s, and they're like, maybe once, but
the guys as us, we're supposed to be like, the 4s and 5s, that's all we can get because we're getting the scraps. Oh God. So after getting married and having kids, do you do art as a full-time job, or you do like another thing on the side as a full-time job?
I'm a graphic designer by trade, so I've been doing that since the very late 90s. So let's say 2000. So I've been doing that for what year is it now? 25 years. That's been my profession. But I always kept up with
the year
art.
2000.
Yeah. Even before then, I was making art, but I was like doing T-shirts and stuff like that. I was really heavy into that for a while. And at around, let's like, I don't know, 10 years ago or something, I started writing a story, and I was like, eventually I realized I wanted to turn into a comic. So about 10 years ago, I started thinking, all right, I know roughly how to draw. Let's see if I can actually, turn that into a comic or something like that. And it's still here all these years later.
So growing up, did you have Marvel and DC comic books growing up, actually? Okay.
Yeah. Well, I didn't really get into DC. I was a Marvel head. And when I say a Marvel head, like, only really kind of Spider-Man, Ghost Rider, some other small titles, what, like, you get a bit of X-Men, whatever, but I'm not like super knowledgeable about all that stuff. But a lot of times just because I forget it. I'm like, I can't really remember. It was so long ago because I didn't pick up like mainstream comics again. You mentioned Comicsgate earlier. That was what it was like. Your boy Zach in like 2016, 17 actually convinced me to come back and start reading like mainstream comics again. Because at that point, I was just reading European comics or older stuff, just the classics, just to sort of see what's what. So like I always feel like whenever comic conversations come up, I'm like, just don't ask me anything because I probably don't know the answer.
There's also another thing you just mentioned there where you had said back in the day you were just getting like Spider-Man, Ghost Rider, and some X-Men stuff here and there. That's what most people do. But like the average person is going to be like, man, back in the day, I was reading everything. Guys, I promise you, even though the internet didn't really exist back then or wasn't as prevalent, nobody on this planet can read everything that comes out a week. It is impossible. I can show you right now on leagueofcomicsgeeks.com the amount of stuff that comes out a week, not barring like reprints and all that stuff, like just the newest stuff that comes out. Not a single person on this planet, no human being, unless you're literally Batman in that super chair, or he like just knew everything. Not that. You are not reading everything. So I feel like the average person, when they're talking about like, hey, I kind of fell off of comic books because it got too bad, they were only reading like the main big characters, like the Spider-Mans, the Batmans, the Supermans, the Incredible Hulks of the world. They weren't reading everything unless you were literally some actual nerd,
And even the sort of more obscure ones, I'd probably get, like a short run. you know, and then that would be it. So I know a little bit about the character, but not that much.
So after the whole, like, let's say your boy Zach situation, and man, I'll be honest here, man, I randomly saw a video of his like long time ago. I don't know. I never really got that vibe that everyone else got. I kind of felt like everything he was doing was performative and fake. Like, I don't know. Like back, like back then on YouTube within like the 2016, 2017 period, people were like doing these rants on YouTube, like just trying to be as off the wall as possible because people just perceived that was just being authentic, was just, going absolutely crazy. Yeah. Like, as you guys see now, that guy is pretty much there's a reason why there's an account on Twitter called Yasoy Whack. I'm just pointing out, that guy is literally insane. Like, he's mentally deranged. Like, I saw that. I just never got the obsession with that guy. I was like, this guy is like, the problem with spaces like these that I think I told you on Twitter, people like that are like the fans, if you want to call them that, they hype up people and put them on pedestals. And I'm sitting there going, this is like the most average dude. This guy's got nothing to offer anyone. People are acting like these people are in the reigns of like Adam Neal or sorry, Neil Adams or people like that. It's like, no, these are like nobodies essentially. This guy got famous for ranting about bad comic books. Like, literally, both of us could do that right now. Anyone could do that.
Yeah, and look, I was a bit like that too. Like, I probably put too many people up on a pedestal when I sort of first started getting into YouTube comic books. But you're exactly right. Like, it's, and you kind of sometimes even people will do that to me and they'll say things about me, and I'm like, I'm just a guy who, like, started talking about stuff on YouTube just because I saw other people doing it and it worked for them. There really is, like, things get so that that parasocial relationships start to develop, and people get so defensive over people they think are like, oh, that's my guy, and it the tribalism and everything, it just gets way out of hand, and you step back for like a week and don't engage in any of it, and you're like, oh my god, I can't even believe that's happening out there. Like, that people get so involved in it. And, like, obviously I'm super involved in my comic, and I love it, and I'm super proud of it, and I'm enthusiastic about it, and I want others to read it and everything. But I don't want them like obsessing over it or me or anything to the point where you're like going after people on my behalf.
Twitter for yourself. Remember, people will literally say the most cringy thing is like, man, Michael Bancroft is the truth. I'm like, guys, that is cringe. Like, look, I'm not kidding. This is literally
I'm not Jesus. I'm not Jesus.
Like, people are like, man, Michael Bancroft is the best of us. Like, you guys are like literally obsessive weirdos. It's like you guys, I'm saying, like, fans on Twitter that talk about indie comic books will pump the creators and individuals up more than they think of themselves. And like we talked about with girls earlier, where you have like the mid one that gets like 30 people in their DMs saying that they're like 10 out of 10s. That's what happens for like some of the indie comic people that are fans of the creators. Because we talked about this on Twitter. I don't think they're fans of the books. I don't even think they're reading the books, actually. They're more like a fan of the personalities that people are putting on for social media. And when you keep putting people on this pedestal, and then you get into the point where it becomes like super cultish, where, like, let's say you did something wrong, or you think you did something wrong. You have people that will literally tell you you did do nothing wrong, even though you yourself said, I did something wrong. But they can't believe you could do something wrong because in their mind, you're a perfect person. You're just God.
I hope that anyone, and I have heard it, I hope that anyone who says, Bancroft is the best of us is saying it tongue in cheek, as just sort of like, it's a kind of a hyperbolic way of saying, I like him a lot. Like, it's fine. But, I get what you're saying. And I'm guilty of doing the same thing. Getting swept up in the hype and everything. But it's, like I said, that's why I'm so happy to just have, a family and a job and a real life and friends outside of all this, so that you can get a good dose of sanity. Because I was hanging with friends last night, and I met a couple of guys I'd never met before, and they're like, oh, what do you do? I was like, oh yeah, I do this comic, and then they was like, oh, that's cool. Like, that's it, until I can say, oh yeah, I do this comic, and they're making it into a movie franchise, and I'm about to sign a $20 million deal. Then they're like, oh wow, yeah, that's impressive. Good on you, man.
So before we get into the other stuff I wanted to go over, since you're someone that does have your own book, your book, if I remember, is like it's the Lucent Netherworld book, right? Is that the one
It's
you
not
have?
Netherworld, just the Lucent.
Lucent. Okay.
Yeah,
So
well,
where did you?
the
Where were
name of
you
the
inspired
series
by
is the
that?
Lucent, and they have different like titles attached to them.
Okay. So what made you inspired to make that your indie comic book then?
Oh, dude. Well, I always had that idea because well, let's just go back because I was like,
Yeah.
I've been a crazy dreamer my whole life, like weird lucid dreaming, and I do things, and I'm like, I remember previous dreams in the dream, so it's sort of like this. I live two lives, one where I'm awake and one where I'm in this dream. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. You know, do all these cool things in the dreams. It would be interesting. What if there was a story like where it's more than that? And then I saw the Matrix. I was like, yeah, like that. Like where they go into the Matrix and then they do things and they come out of it and they're normal and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, obviously I don't want to remake the Matrix. It's like, oh, cool. So I was really inspired when I saw that. It's like, all right, I could actually write my story and do it my way. And I just kept having these crazy dreams and just putting that into the story. And then over many years, it somehow just, what my story just kind of evolved out of all that.
So when you were first starting to make your comic book, did you do like a Kickstarter or Indiegogo or crowdfunding or anything like that?
No, because I
Okay.
started in so I'd written my story going back years, but then it wasn't really working because I was thinking, is it going to be a novel? Is it going to be what? I don't know what it's going to be. And then when I discovered European comics, I was like, I want it to look like that. So I was like, all right, time to make a comic. How do you make a comic? I went onto YouTube and was like looking how to draw heads and stuff like that. Because my art until then was a bit more just whatever I wanted to do. I used to draw comic book stuff when I was younger, so there's a little bit of experience there. But I so around 2014, 2015, I'm like, okay, I'm making comic pages, and I didn't know what to do with them. So I was like, what do you do with independent comics? The kind of big crowdfunding boom hadn't happened at that point. Obviously, there were crowdfunders, but I mean, I was literally a nobody. No Twitter, no YouTube, no nothing. I didn't even know if I was on Facebook at that point anymore. So I was just like, oh, look, web comics. Oh, okay. And then I found web comics. I found Tapas. I found Webtoons. And I was like, all right, so I can upload onto that and then people can read it and comment. And that's what I did. I did that for 2 years, maybe something like that, and built a really big following on Webtoon, especially like 25,000 followers or something. And that was fantastic. I do love that site because you get actual readers who actually care about your story and your characters and what's coming next and everything. And they let you know in the comments. Like when you do crowdfunding, that's a lot rarer because everyone just wants to talk about numbers and how many backers you got and what did you get more backers than the last campaign. No one really wants to talk about the story I found. That's not like on YouTube and in crowdfunding. But obviously in crowdfunding, you can make money and I can do things that I wouldn't be able to do if I was just uploading onto Webtoon, like get hardcovers printed and stuff like that.
So you're one of the few people that I talked to that has done this, that was essentially here before crowdfunding kind of took over the indie comic book space. So for anybody who doesn't know this, I did the Iron Man podcast pretty much exclusively to Rumble, barring a certain situation that happened. And there was a good amount of people that I met that were doing this before the internet took over with like crowdfunding. And they said it was much different back then, trying to get up off the ground to try to get your indie comic out there. You have to essentially go to show like cons and everything. You have to show it off to people, like tell a friend, that person tells a friend kind of thing. But now, like as you said, with the advent of like crowdfunding or like Indiegogo and Kickstarter, do you think it makes it easier to get seen with that? But it's a double-edged sword of like backers and money dominate the conversation.
Barrier. Yeah, but it's kind of like a double-edged sword because the barrier to entry has never been lower.
Right.
I mean, and there's been trailblazers who've already kind of forged the path ahead of you. So really, like, I mean, you can look at so many people out there and see what did they do, and you can just follow what they did. Whereas, 10 years ago, no one had really done it. it was a point where it's like if you made 3 or 4,000 on a Kickstarter, you were doing pretty well. Like that was like, oh wow, that's pretty good. And then people started breaking through, and it just kept it. Then it got crazy, and you're like, it was 100,000, and then it was 300,000, and then it was 400,000. It was a million. What it like? And then remember, Keanu Reeves came in and made 1.5, and everyone was like, "What is this?" Mm-hmm. So, yeah. And then Ripper, it was like, I mean, he wasn't strictly crowdfunding, but similar.
Ronda Rousey did it. If you guys like wrestling, she did a Kickstarter.
I totally forgot about Ronda Rousey.
I remember the ads. I remember the ads on YouTube. I was like, she does a crowdfunder. That's crazy. Hers made
and YouTube is another big part of it as well. Back in the day, at least I didn't know about it. That like you could go onto YouTube and sort of build up an audience there because and sell to them, or at least like hope to stuff like that. So that was another big thing that has changed in the last 10 years.
And then, barring with your YouTube channel, who convinced you to start a YouTube channel?
I was just, I mean, that was, like I said, your boy Zach and Ethan Van Sciver and John Mall and those guys. Like, I was watching a lot of their content at that time. That's what they did. And I was like, that's what I got to do. I saw what was working for others. And I'm like, all right, let's see how much I can do. I mean, obviously, I have no background in comics. I have no name. I have no audience pre-existing. So it would all just have to be built from the ground up. But that's what Zach did back in the day. Although you understand, like, some people catch lightning in a bottle. You have to be the right place, right time, right person. But even if you're not that, you can still build over time. And I always figure, if you're a complete nobody, no one knows who you are, it will probably take like 10 to 20 years of putting out comics and content at the same time to build an actual stable audience for your work. So you got to kind of be in it for the long haul. And I'm 5 years in, I think, with that. So I think I'm doing really well, from thinking about where I started.
Because I think the thing you just said right there, a lot of people that I've talked to when I did it on the other podcast, they didn't actually apply that in their brains. They were thinking, I just start a Indiegogo or a Kickstarter with my comic book and I'm going to just hit it big and people are going to love my idea, when not realizing there's so many different factors to that. Like, so let's say I start one. Let's say I just go and put out a comic book with a Kickstarter or an Indiegogo or a Fund My Comic crowdfund. People actually are so tunnel visioned in life. They don't think that other people are doing the exact same thing they're doing, only they're just either doing it now, after you, or, later in the future. People just think, oh, if I'm just doing this, I'm the only one doing it, which is odd because people would then realize after that, it's like, oh my God, a lot of people are doing this. This is going to be a lot of competition. Well, as I always tell people, there's always going to be a lot of competition in anything you're going to do. To think that just because you're making something and people will just, like what you're doing is just crazy. But that comes with the, like you said before, being new at the territory, not knowing, like, okay, there's a lot of ropes you would have to learn, and not like ropes as far as like anything bad. It's just these are just the general rules that apply. There's going to be a very big place for competition, and people are going to be vying for every dollar they can because, people want to get their books funded. They want to get, the money so they can print the books and give them to you. But, making comic books costs a lot of money. As people know, for Australia, costs over there have exploded.
Yeah.
So it's.
No, you're 100% right. And, the competition gets at least more crowded every year.
Yeah.
And we've seen that it was a time back in the day where there just weren't that many good looking comic book crowdfunders, and when the big boom happened in like 2018, people were getting shit funded for like 50 grand almost sight unseen. It was nuts. It was like a gold rush. But then over time it leveled out, and reality set in on top of, I mean, there's a million factors, like a lot of them, not a lot of them, but a good number of them failed.
The main one, I think it's like fads pass. So like the best argument that I could use for that to tackle onto what you're saying is when something becomes big, it always peaks. There's always like a massive peak it has. Then it starts leveling out. then you will kind of figure out, okay, who's really kind of in this for the long haul when you have like a bunch of people kind of fall off because they didn't like get the results that they did. Case in point, like long running TV shows people have watched for years, like CSI or NCIS, or those long TV shows that run like 20, 30, 40 seasons. They've had their viewership peaks years and years and years ago. Whoever's still watching those shows now are just the hardcore fans that are going to stick it out for the rest of their lives. They're just for lifers, you know? And that's what happened with crowdfunding, was that I think a lot of people didn't realize, hey, this is only going to be good right now. Like it's going to level out eventually. Everything levels out when it comes to that stuff, you know? And we also got the big boom because you had the whole, you know, creation of Comicsgate and everything. And then later on came, wait a minute. People don't actually know how to run businesses, because it's one thing to, like, let's say, be an artist and just you draw your art and you sell it to people, you know, but it's another thing to actually run a business, look at spreadsheets, I don't know, getting someone's bank information to pay them, a bunch of things. Yeah.
When that all kicked off, there was lots of different people who came into it. Some of them were just complete amateurs, and I would have put myself in that category. I actually could have launched my book back in 2018. Maybe I could have made, you know, a whole bunch of money. I didn't feel like I was ready. I didn't feel like I had all the ducks I needed, like, in a row lined up. So I waited, and I thought, you know, would it be good? It'd be better if I actually try to build an audience a little bit first, so I'm not just super reliant on everyone around me to get the word out about my book. And then on top of that, just like, but people they jumped in head first, and maybe they just didn't understand how much it costs to produce a comic, then to print it, then to ship it. We saw that happen. Or you get people who had worked in the industry,
right?
Who had done really well as a contractor, an employee, but now they're doing everything. And it's not just running the campaign and doing all the moving parts of the production and everything. It's also the marketing. You know, you've got to be out there selling it. You got to be going around different channels and everything. And that's like a big time commitment. So, you know, people underestimated that a lot as well. That caused a lot of issues. I mean, there's no real way around that. There's very few people who crowdfund who you almost never see on YouTube. There are a couple, and they do amazingly well, but they have other things about them that set them apart. Like Kenneth Rocafort, for example, he does his book Groken. He's never on YouTube. He makes almost 100,000 just because he's one of the best artists in the world.
Yeah,
you know,
like if
not
Alex
everyone
Ross
is going to be
did
like
a crowd. If Alex Ross right now did an indie comic book and just chose to crowdfund it, he'd make lots of money, because Alex Ross. Yeah, everyone knows who Alex Ross is. Alex Ross' art, it's amazing, right? But people have to understand, to get to being Alex Ross, you got to put in years of work. It's not going to be an overnight thing, and people have to understand there's going to be people that do a hobby or do something that are going to be the consistent people. Like, I would always tell people this: you need to strive for just being consistent. If you're consistently good, people like consistent people. They're reliable. But people just want to be like the X Factor, the alpha that gets like 100,000 or whatever. And it's like, you're not going to be the reality is you're not going to be that guy. You know, you're going to be the guy that's probably making like 10K, and you're going to be trying to make your book and get it fulfilled off a smaller budget. But what I've noticed is people that get the smaller budgets, like the 5,000s and the 10,000s of the world, they always seem to consistently deliver their books, other than people that get like more than that. I mean, recently we had Rob Hunter basically just admit he scammed a bunch of people. Literally just outright basically being like, yeah, you know what? I thought I could just like live off this, which is like, what?
Yeah, that was such, I couldn't, I was really like, when I read that, I had this moment like,
I actually literally almost threw myself off a bridge. I was literally walking on there's this bridge over there, and I was reading, I was like, wait, it's not real. This person literally gaslit people. And then I did the video on it last night, and that, you know, that second sentence where he says, why should you care? It's like, that's the ultimate gas. Why should I care?
Actually, a lot of people share out the image with the yellow thing highlighted. I made that. I did that because I'm like, this needs to be highlighted, this point. And when I tweeted about it, I said, dude, you could probably count on one hand the people out there who make enough money consistently. You got to be doing this year in, year out, like high numbers Like, you can't come into it first time and expect that's going to happen. I think Donald DeLay said, that is extraordinarily rarefied air to expect that you're going to be able to actually live off the money you bring in from crowdfunding. Most people are lucky, even when you get big numbers. And I've been incredibly blessed to have gotten really big numbers on some of my campaigns. And even then, after the production, after shipping, after taxes, it's not like you're living off the amount of money that's left over.
Because that would be the money you either pay yourself or you use to reinvest
or you
back
reinvest back
into
new stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like you need, and on top of that, all these big guys who are making a living through crowdfunding, a lot of them have secondary sources of income. Some of them make good money on YouTube. Others have a back catalog that they sell from, or they're working artists that can, do commissions or sell pieces, or just whatever. Maybe they're, they just have other sources of income. Maybe their wife or whatever works as well. So it's not just like they're not relying. They're not putting the pressure. That's what's crazy. That was what was like. I felt like he was
that
kind
might
of
be
miffed.
that might be one of the worst things I've read in this space when as pertaining to like things that have blown up in people's faces, because it was such bullshit. That second paragraph, if people actually read it, where he says, "Why should you care?" It's like, why should I care that you potentially maybe scam people out of $32,000? Yeah, I probably should care about that. The next part where he said the thing that you brought up, which was, I thought I could live off that. He said, literally, in theory, crowdfunding should be, this is actually even more retarded, because who the hell told you this and why did you believe it? He said, in theory, crowdfunding is supposed to be, I can live off this money while I promote the project. No, crowdfunding is you get the money to make the book. That's why I gave you money. If you need money for your bills, go make a, I don't know, GoFundMe or Give, Send, Go, or whatever they fucking call it these days. If you need money to pay your bills, that's a completely different websites for those, right?
I actually did the maths a while ago. I don't know why. I think I read something somewhere, and I'm like, how much would I need to raise to live off crowdfunding? And in Australia, because the Australian dollar is a lot lower than the US dollar, I can kind of get away with a bit there. But even then, I worked out I would need to make 180,000 every year and that would cover my income, production of the book, and shipping and taxes. But I would have to do that year in, year out without fail. Okay, all right. How many people out there are doing 180,000 in crowdfunding year in, year out? Again, it is rarefied air.
Maybe
so to come into it and think that's going to be you,
Yeah, it's like what, the top 5% that'll probably have that?
Top 1%. Top 1%.
You're right.
There are thousands of people crowdfunding. And the top 1% is usually comprised of very well-known people, professionals who've been working in the industry for decades, who have established names, big YouTube channels, or just like people have big YouTube channels or whatever. And even then, they're not consistently doing 100, 200, 300,000 campaigns every year. They might do one year, and then they do a bunch of other smaller campaigns or whatever. It was a catastrophic misunderstanding of the scene to think you could live off a $30,000 crowd when I don't think he thought you could. I think he thought he was going to make 150,000 or something, which is just like, why would that?
The thing you mentioned that in his post he was talking about crowdfunding, and that last part of the image of the update that he sent out on his Indiegogo campaign was the fact that he had mentioned the fact that he now has to work a low income manufacturing job. So I think I said this in last night's episode in the video that I did with Lunchbox Warren, was that I think this person was only doing this potentially thinking, hey, I'll do this and get some money to pay my bills that I'm behind on. Because remember, he basically admitted that he's going to go into bankruptcy. So it's like, did this person only get into doing this because they were almost bankrupt? or they were doing this because they actually wanted to deliver a book. Because literally, guys, in the second paragraph of the update, it clearly states, he himself wrote this, not me. He says, why should you care? What? I almost hung myself when I read that. I was like, wow, is there a rope I can grab to fucking tie that to a freaking rail so I can jump off? Like, what in the world? Like, did this person seriously just come in here and get 32K and just run off with the money to pay his bills? And keep in mind, he mentioned he's still in debt. Person probably is still in debt. So he came in.
Yeah, well, if you think about it, 30 grand over 3 years, no one's like living off that.
That's true.
That's like, you know, way below poverty level. That's, you know, you can't. So he had to go into his savings. He had to do freelance stuff, which slows down production of the book and everything. But, you know, we all do that because, yeah, you got to be realistic about your situation. Even if you come from a professional background, which he did as an inker, that really doesn't mean anything. And people have tried to kind of big dick their way into crowdfunding, and it's ended up disastrous. Like, oh, come in and say, I'm a, you know, 2-time Eisner winner thingo, I'm going to make, you know, so much money. And then, you know, when it doesn't exactly pan out like they thought it would, they kind of get egg on their face. But, you know, at least most of the time they get a little bit of egg on their face, but they deliver their product. You know, in this case, yeah, I don't.
There was the other one too. He's not just been the only one. There's the Jimmy Reyes situation. Then you have, there's one that Donnie Cates, because remember, he was the person that made that recent good Venom run everyone talks about. He was a part of a crowdfunder that never manifested. Even Rob Liefeld, the guy that created Deadpool, has a 10-year late crowdfunder. Like, because what's crazy is the line that almost made me just go, you know what? I'd rather just Jesus literally just say flooded again. Just do that again. Because people had said this person was a good guy. But I talk to these people. They're good guys. I also right now, anyone that would make excuses for someone like that, where they would scam you out of all that money, those aren't good people. That's like the thing that Democrats say when they basically excuse black people for doing crime in bad neighborhoods, because their line of thinking goes like, well, they had to go and rob that bank and loot up that store because they're poor. They had to just do that. It's like that, but in your mind, you're thinking that's make you a good person. All of us have problems. Every single one of us, maybe watching this episode or when you're watching the replay or when you watch this in the future, all of us have issues. All men have problems. We just deal with it. But you don't just go out there and just scam people or do crime and cause other pain to other people. That's not a good person. I'm sorry. I don't care if he said hi to you on Twitter and he maybe jerked you off in a bathroom somewhere. I literally don't care. That does not make you a good person. Scamming people like that.
I had Rob on my channel years ago. I think that's what they say. Like, he's a very like pleasant, you know, person to have a conversation with. But yeah, like, what matters is when it comes down to it, you know, when it really matters, like, did you come through? And I think that's what most people are looking at when they say like, oh yeah, you know, like this is not a good thing what's happened here by any stretch. And yeah, like, people do kind of dismiss it a little bit because it's like, oh yeah, well, you only lost $50, maybe you only lost $25, a couple of people lost hundreds of dollars.
Yeah,
but all in all, it is $30,000, and there's been bigger ones that have gone under as well, like 50,000. I think the biggest one I know of is a book called Shinobi Sasquatch that came out really in the like big heavy days. It may have made close to 100. I mean, maybe it wasn't that. Maybe it was like 80 or 90, but it was a lot of money. And
or like
yeah, that
those original Comicsgate campaigns. A lot of them, if people go and watch that CG documentary that one person uploaded a while ago, if you don't watch anything else beside the first part of it, where you have all these people that have just never fulfilled, there's been a ton of people, like you said earlier, got into it and they basically went, hey, I'm making a lot of money. I can do this. I've made it. Not realizing there's a business back end of that where you have customer satisfaction. That seems to have basically just been gone out the window, non-existent. Updates don't happen often.
That part of it is what irks me a little bit more. You know, I can speak from experience. In actuality, I have 2 full shelves here full of stuff that I've got, and I back from anyone. I don't care. I don't care if you call yourself Comicsgate. I don't care if you're on Kickstarter. I don't care wherever you're from. If you've got a cool looking book, I'll grab it. That's all crowdfunded comics. That stuff. That's probably almost 200 campaigns. Now I am waiting on a bunch of stuff, but it's not a huge amount. So here's what happens: the big ones that that have made hundreds of thousands of dollars, like Rainbow the Brood, or some of the Cyberfrog ones, or what's some other ones. There's actually been a lot of others. They're the ones that people talk about, but there are many dozens of other smaller campaigns that don't really get any fanfare that just deliver, and they're delivering all the time. So I don't want to paint it as if like they never come out. What happens is you get some really big examples that are super late.
It's common that they're just late most of the time. People don't like late stuff,
Yeah, but and I can forgive lateness if there's really good communication and a decent reason. If there's no decent reason, then I'm like
Joe M. Sontag, who does Reaper Destroyer. He was late on his book. He was like almost 4 years late, but he had his dad passed away. That's pretty traumatizing for a lot of people. That, like, if it's literally life and death, I fully understand. That is like, okay, you take the time you need. And Joe M. Sontag was still streaming, still making content. People knew he was working on the book. Just an example like that. Like, if you literally had something really traumatic happen to you, look, shit happens. People understand. But you need to communicate that with people, not just keep people in the dark. See, if you don't communicate that with someone,
and don't keep them in the dark. And if they're miffed, because if they're angry because, hey, I put hundreds of dollars on this thing years and years ago, and I'm not really seeing the progress that I was expecting here, and they express that, I think if you're a creator, you need to just take that on the chin and not lash out at them, because that's like, this whole thing is based on trust. And from where I came from, like when I came into crowdfunding, when I came into the CG scene originally, from my perspective, it was all about, hey, customers deserve respect, readers deserve respect, because at that time, all these activist leftists had infiltrated comics and were disrespecting the stories, disrespecting characters, and disrespecting fans. And that's what really got everyone's hackles up, and that's what was the engine behind a lot of the the energy that surrounded those early days. So when I see people like bad mouthing previous backers and stuff like that, I'm like, I'm not cool with it. I think that's a really bad way to handle bad situations. But again, I'm not someone out there who ever like is going to be going around telling people what to do or anything. I just do my own thing. And I've been a couple of months late on one of my books, and I was like, hey, this is what happened. We had a print issue. I'm having to go through every single book by hand, checking them, because I don't want to send out bad books. And that's what it was. So it's going to take a little while for me to do that, and then this and that, other stuff or whatever. So just let people know.
But I think those issues, if they arise, like you've just said there, I think people are. I think the average person understands that shit happens in life. But just as long as you're communicating with that person or people that you have that backed your crowdfunding, your campaigns, or anything like that, I think they're fine with that. But what happens is people don't get updates for 6 months to a year, maybe 2 years, and they go like, what the hell happened? And then when someone's rightfully upset about that, because this notion that to be fair to the crowdfunding websites like Kickstarter and Indiegogo, it does state in the terms of service that you're not exactly guaranteed a product. The problem with that line of logic that people utilize is like, no customer wants to hear that. No customer wants to hear, hey, I give you money and I might get something. No one wants to hear that. That's not something people want to hear. If you tell people that, they're gonna be like, okay, that's pretty sketchy. I'm gonna save my money. Because if people want to look at backers as customers, well, if they're not satisfied, you should make them satisfied. They're going to be angry. People are like, but this guy was mean to me. Yeah, he gave you money. He doesn't have his product. Of course he's mad. What? You shouldn't be mad at him. You should just at least try to convince him, hey, I'm going to get it done. Don't worry. I'm not going to leave you. I will make sure you have your product. But a lot of people get mad that the customer's mad when technically it's your fault in theory that it's late. I don't understand that though. This happens in every business. Like, of course, the customer's gonna be mad when they don't get their product. That's just a normal thing. I don't go. That's such a foreign concept to people. It's like that's literally
and
customer service.
maybe that's just what needs to be a bit more articulated. It's like, hey, when you launch a crowdfund, what's your take on it? How do you view crowdfunding? Are these backers and they're like donating to a campaign, and you get it when you get it, whatever happens? Or are you someone who's looking at it more like customers, where you're selling a book? In Australia, Australian consumer law is so strict, they wouldn't even acknowledge Indiegogo or Kickstarter like guidelines or whatever. They'd be like, no, if someone has given you money, you need to deliver. Otherwise, you're like in serious trouble. And that's just,
tell
I
them,
don't know,
hey,
we have really strict consumer watchdog laws here. So like they wouldn't even, they're like crowdfunding. That who cares? Like someone bought something off you, you better deliver. Otherwise, they have a really long arm and it is very powerful. So to me, I'm like, I never really looked at it like that. I was always like, sure, you're backing a campaign. Okay. It's not technically exactly the same as buying a product. But at the end of the day, well, we have to kind of fulfill on that promise as though you are, because if you don't, you're going to lose the trust of future backers. And I think we've seen a lot of that happen, like as well, like stacking lots of campaigns together and stuff like that. I've had to draw the line on creators in the past. I remember copying a lot of heat when I publicly said I wasn't going to be backing your boy Zach again until he'd fulfilled. I think I was waiting on like 4 books from him, and he was continuously launching campaigns. And I was like, and I was still watching the guy on YouTube and everything at the time. I was like, I liked you, dude, but I got to cut you off at this point, because I can't just keep putting money in, and then whenever you get to it, you get to it. I can't do that.
Because there's 2 things that I want to add to what you just said. So when it's not even just creators that really say that. It's fans that'll say that. Fans will say, but in the terms of service, it says you may or may not get a product. It's like, do I have to live on this planet with idiots? Can we live on this planet with actual smart people? Literally, people that are fans will say, why didn't this person get funded? If you use logic like, well, I mean, you may or may not get a product by the terms of service, you're an idiot. It's like, well, then you deserve to have nobody that supports your shit, because that's just an idiotic line of thinking to basically say, okay, I have these customers, they give me money. Technically, the rules state I don't have to give you anything. But you just
I'm a very laissez-faire kind of libertarian leaning guy when it comes to stuff like this. As long as you are upfront about what you're doing, look, go ahead. And if you can convince people that, hey, just keep giving me more money and whatever, and they want to do it and they're happy, because that's a lot of the criticism you hear against Ripper as well. People say, oh, Ripper books are subpar, they're terrible, these fans don't know anything about good comics. My position is, if they're happy and the Ripperverse are happy, what's the problem? Like, let them be happy together and enjoy it. But I extend that to other people as well. If people want to back creators who have shown consistently they're late on books and stuff like that,
but they don't respect customers at all.
If they're happy, look, I don't have to like it, but I don't have to have anything to do with it. I can just, like, that was actually going back, that was a big thing that we would say is, well, it's closed, and that's what it is. It's like, all right, well, for me, that's where I draw the line. Well, it's closed. And that's how it is. So, I don't have control over this scene. I don't have control over what this person does or that person does or what anyone thinks. All I have control over is what I do with my books and my fans. So,
the other thing I wanted to bring up there was this notion that if you don't see your backers as customers, well, backing is, I think it's like investing in someone, because you are literally investing in someone. You're investing in someone's idea to make something.
You're
If
putting
you
a lot
get,
of trust in them, yeah.
yeah, so by that logic, if we're considered like investors, okay, I don't like the investment I made when I first backed you. So can I pull out now? Pause. Can I pull out now? Because we're treating backers like investors. Well, investors pull out when they don't like their investment the first time around. They just leave. That's how it works.
Yeah, investing doesn't really work as a word, because in investments you're
You actually
expected
make money back. Yeah.
dividends and returns and things. So it's more like a donation. I think if that was made clearer by people, if you're a creator and that's how you see it, like Rob Hunter. Rob Hunter clearly saw it like that. But I don't know. I mean, I didn't see it, but maybe he did. I didn't see it. Maybe he did say up front, look, you're donating to me, to my life, so that I can make this comic, and then maybe you'll get it, maybe you won't, but you're donating to me. Like, if they're upfront with that and people want to pay that, it's like, all right. I mean, but I don't really hear that language much. What I usually, when people sell crowdfunding, they're like, hey, get the this bundle, get this perk, get this book, get this thing. So yeah, there is this understanding. I'm putting money in to get something back, usually.
The other thing I'll ask you is the thing you wanted to cover here on this episode for your first appearance was you wanted to go over why, like, the things that people generally get as mistakes when they're first time doing it. Like, they essentially like don't sell their story enough. They don't do certain things. So I'll ask you this, because I've asked other people that do your kind of thing a lot of the very same similar things, which is, what are your biggest, I would say, pet peeves when first time creators or come into the space and they do as mistakes, in your opinion?
The biggest mistake is people have crazy expectations, and they, like we talked about, that they come in and expect the scene, promoters or whoever, or just existing fans, to just drop what they're doing because you've suddenly launched a book, and to come over and just flood it with backers. And that causes bitterness, because they see others doing that, but they don't see all of the groundwork that leads up to that. So yeah, people don't understand how much you have to promote your stuff. And even who I feel like I'm on the high end of constantly, like, doing YouTube all the time, I'm tweeting all the time, even I probably don't do it enough. And you could always do more, but some people, they just kind of disappear for a few years and then come back and say, hey, I've got a book now, let's, like, everyone gather around and back it. But people need to feel invested in what you're doing, and to get that investment, it's like
Bancroft has a
it's
secret weapon
really
that helped
difficult.
him on his first campaign. I don't know if he still has him, but he has the Thunder Buns. What
Thunder Buns is the nickname of my editor. I do still have him. I miss him as well, Eric. He's just not on YouTube anymore. Talk about, this guy got kicked around by life like crazy with health, and he lives in California, so it's like you can imagine what it's like living there.
I love California too. Well,
there you go.
Yeah,
and he's telling me all these things that are going on, and I'm like, oh, dude. And but no, he's still editing my book. He also edited Eric Canetti's Arc Athena, and helped Artsy Bear with Black and White. So he's very talented, great guy, and yeah, we all miss him on YouTube.
The thing that I found as a common theme amongst indie creators was that, like, they would judge each other's campaigns as if like that was a measure for like what the books would be. And then the other thing to back that up with what I'm gonna go and follow up with that here, which is, as you mentioned here, people don't really read the books though. So like you have all these creators going back and forth with each other, but it's like you guys are going back and forth for like I guess business sense of like backers on crowdfunding websites, when it's like the thing that I think people should be going back and forth on is like having those like Marvel DC, Marvel anime, DC anime debates like Goku versus Superman. That
Yep.
that Goku versus Superman thing should be what the creators are arguing over. Like, no, my character could be your character, and that would create, I think, crazy but healthy conversations where it comes from a line of passion, but at least at that point, you're at least talking about your story. You're at least talking about, okay, my character does this in this universe. Let's see what your character can do against mine. But it's mostly off like, well, I disagree with you because you said you like Joe Biden and I like Trump. So I am your immortal enemy. It's like, what in the world's happening to you?
Well, it's not from lack of trying.
Yeah.
God knows people have tried. I've tried. People are still trying. Yeah. They've done it over the years, and it might be the medium in which we're trying it, Twitter and YouTube. It just doesn't seem to be why people are here. People watch YouTube, I find people watch streams especially for that action, for the conflict, for the drama. Like that's 95% of what goes on live streams. They want to be entertained with that sort of stuff. Like I said earlier, Webtoons was amazing for that. I mean, it really was.
I wish more creators would get into that. Like, it really does. It really is good. Yeah.
Of like just fans who are interested in your story, and they give you feedback. And if they're unclear on anything, they'll let you know. There is a little bit of that happens once you get to a certain point, but nowhere near the level that I was finding on Webtoon. And I just felt like, I mean, I feel bad that I had to kind of leave that behind, and I don't know if I can necessarily go back now because I don't know if it's how different it is now. But I felt like I wanted to give crowdfunding a chance because I saw that this is that flash bang moment, and this isn't going to last forever. So I wanted to like get into it at that point because it's so different now than it was 7 years ago. So I'm glad I did that. But the one thing that it's really difficult to get going is to get people to talk about comics. What's the stories? What's in them? And that's when you start to realize there isn't really a very big indie comic fan base. What there is people like stories, people like investing in cool things, but they're not just randomly looking for the next indie comic. Not many anyway. And so, you're always pushing a boulder uphill when you try and make that content. At least that's what I found.
Do you know what I think also is the nail in the coffin that a lot of people don't realize? Not just comic books. The main reason why a lot of people know certain characters exist is because of animated TV shows and movies and live action movies and TV shows. Invincible did sell very well back when its heyday, its prime, when Robert Kirkman was doing it. But how many people got into actually really reading and watching Invincible when they saw it as a show on Amazon Prime?
Same with The Walking Dead.
Yeah, I'd imagine the sales exploded for the books when they saw the show because the show is a lot more easier of a way to introduce people to something, because typically with people, getting them to sit down and read something is hard. Even if they want to read it, they'll put the book on a shelf somewhere and not read it for a while until they really want to pick it up. And the thing with characters, when it comes to like indie comic books, what I've seen, it's hard for the average person to get invested into a character that they just don't know or not, or it's not, or hasn't seen something that can really draw them in. Like, I know animation and that TV stuff takes a lot of money to do, but that's why the studios did it. They realized that they could get so many people to be fans of characters if they just made an animated show of something than just invest more time in comic books, because it's much easier to get someone hooked on a show than it is to read a book. That's why you'll see book sales explode for like insert book related movie that comes out, because that's the easiest way to draw people in. And without that, in the indie comic space, you have to kind of convince someone, hey, I'm making this character called Butt Fuck Nobody. Here's
and on top of that, like we mentioned earlier, the barrier to entry into this space is so low now. And now you got AI, like anyone can do it.
Yeah.
So the problem is a lot of the characters are just not even worth knowing. And then the stories aren't even that good. And the ones that are decent enough, they take a long time to come out because, the guy has a day job or whatever, or, it's just, it is what it is. So yeah, it's like there's gold in these hills, but it's hard to find. And even when you find it, it's like it kind of comes out in small drips. So it doesn't really lend itself to the sort of like lore discussions that you would find around, say, manga and everything, where you've got thousands of chapters of stuff. So yeah, it's really, we find ourselves in a really tough situation, and the only thing that's really pulling us through it is because as creators, you're super passionate about your own thing. So you're like, I mean, you got to believe in yourself that you're going to be that 1 in 100 that actually hits and people really like and are going to stick with long term, because the money usually isn't really worth it. It helps you along the way, but it's not like we've seen. Don't come into crowdfunding thinking you're going to make $1 million, because that's going to be like a 1 in 10,000. It's probably not going to be you.
Do you people have seen this in the chat? See, this is the thing. Me versus John Longbox. 1-on-1. No one else around.
Well, yeah, I mean, how old is John? I mean,
isn't he like 60?
I don't know if he's 60. He's still working. Oh, he says John is 60 years old.
Isn't John? I don't remember. He told me how old he was. I'm pretty sure he's almost 70. That man is old.
No, John is not on, man. He's still working. He's
Guys,
he's very sharp. He's
So you did a few videos on your channel that got a lot of attention. The first one was the #1 problem with indie comic books, and then the second one was I'm done with Indiegogo. So what made you go like, I'm done with Indiegogo? You just didn't like the practices of the company? That's beside many other things wrong with their company.
It was many things over many years. And some of them just happened to me and a few other people. Like, they doxed my home address on my page for like 24 hours one time, and I called them out on it, and they just said, this issue's been resolved. I'm like, yeah, but you doxed me. Can I get oh, we're sorry about that? They started. Now, people call it shadow banning or whatever it is. I don't really care, but they made it, whether intentionally or not, and I think it may have been intentional, but I can't prove it. They made it difficult to be able to find campaigns, to be able to find people. And it could just be their UI was just completely busted, but it seemed very selective. Well, at the time, we were contemplating whether or not it was like CG related, and some people say yes, it was. I have kind of flip-flop back and forth. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I do know there was a time when they, were very kind of what you would call SJW focused and whatever. I think they're probably just incompetent and trying to save their skins, because you could talk with a guy at Indiegogo and he'd ask me anything. The moment you say, why can nobody find my campaign? Like, you can't search for it. It doesn't come up. It's like you don't exist anymore. The communication stops. And I'm like, okay, well, that's one thing. On top of that, there's stories going back 3 years now of people waiting months and months and months. It never happened to me, thankfully, but it happened to lots of people waiting a long time for funds. I've had Indiegogo was just like taking campaigns down. Just, we're taking it down. And it's completely inconsistently, and they give you a reason, and it's completely inconsistently applied. Now, everything that Indiegogo is guilty of, not everything, most things Kickstarter is probably also guilty of.
Right. Yeah.
Over time. But I have seen a bit of a commitment over the last couple of years to be more professional and less biased on Kickstarter. Not perfect. They still do ban certain campaigns for political reasons and stuff. Thank goodness for Fund My Comic existing. But I was just like, I think I can't remember exactly what it was. Even it may have been they banned Cecil's book or something, and I was like, you know what, that's it. I'm done. I'm out. I don't like. I built my own site, and it does really well. I'm sure there are people who no longer back me because they only want to back an Indiegogo, and I feel bad about that. But I'm just like, I'm done. I'm done. I'm done with this site.
Yeah, it's also the other thing of like shadow banning. So like a new creator could be doing everything right, promoting, going on different shows, being on Twitter, being active, not even in drama. But if the crowdfunding websites aren't actively promoting your campaigns and just shadow banning you, you're just fucked either way. You can't do anything. Like that's not fair.
Yeah, it's like, what's the point? Like, what do you
Yeah.
what is this is just your, because you pay them. You pay them like, oh, on top of that, they swindle a lot of backers into paying exorbitant friggin' what are they, donations,
The shipping
tips.
prices. Yeah,
They
good
go on
lord.
tips. And they're already automatically set to like 18% or something. So if you back a big tier, you could get people being stung for hundreds of dollars on these things. So like, that's super shady. So all right, I'm paying you in fees, fair enough. You've got to, it's your site, you got to, do all the infrastructure. There's a lot of legalese and everything going around it. Transferring a lot of money, but I'm not getting the full service. This guy's getting the full service. Why aren't I getting the full service? It doesn't seem right to me. At least on Kickstarter, you can browse comics. You can, and I do it regularly for my show. I'm like, I can go to comics and browse what's new, what's hot, what's cool, and you can look at, and you can see all of them. You can't do that on Indiegogo. It's a mess. You go to look in comics, and it's stuff that was closed 4 years ago next to something that didn't fund 6 months ago. Oh, here's one that's good. I already knew about that one. All right, what's the, like? It's a mess. It's a mess of a site. And I remember watching an interview with the CEO once, and she's now gone, but she was like, "Oh yeah, no, we love working from home. We all work in our pajamas." And I'm like, "Yeah, it shows." It's like, nah.
So you're just gonna launch basically on Fund My Comic and Kickstarter? That's it?
No, I have my own site. I do it all on
your own site. Okay. You think that's
So I do
better
it
now?
through there. I've done a couple of Kickstarters. One of them got the project we love, and that did really well. The other one didn't, and it was just kind of like, I don't know, made $1,000 or something. It was like, I don't even know if I want to do that anymore. Maybe I will, like, at a later date. But basically my method is, I have a YouTube, I stream, I make shorts, I promote myself on X, and drive all that to my site. It looks the way I want it to look. I'm in full control of it. I can do things that you can't do on any of these crowdfunding platforms, because it's an online store. And yeah, I mean, the big one, but the second book is almost at 80,000 US, which is, in the scene, is massive. So like, I've got no complaints on that front.
So a few more things I'll ask you before we head out of here. The first thing is, this might get you in a little bit of trouble, but it's fun. It's fun. Who are your favorite indie comic book creators in this space that are underrated, that you would like to shout out, that you actually enjoy their work?
I know my favorite, underrated. Okay, first of all, Joshua Plack. Is it Plack or Plank? He goes by Raiden Radio. And I tweeted this out not too long ago. And I mean it. He might be, I'm not saying he is, he might be the best writer in indie comics. He is a superb storyteller. He's got a book out right now called Eudaimonia 3. It's not like anything else that is being made, and that might be why he's kind of obscure, because he makes these sort of poetic stories almost. He also has another great book called Noirlam, which is a detective story set in Harlem in I think like the 30s or something. Fantastic book. Who else do I like? Oh God. See, a lot of them I like them, and they're not like they're well known and respected and everything. So like Kenneth Rocafort and Per Berg.
Have you read Dave Brink's Perfect 10 series?
I haven't read it.
Okay.
Because I've backed it, but because I'm in Australia, I get all my stuff sent through Critical Blast, so we have to wait until there's a big box of stuff to get delivered, and then he sends it over. So it's on order. I will be hoping to get it in the next couple of months or something. So I can't wait to read Dave Brink's book, because I kind of slept on it for a long time, just because I'm not normally drawn to superhero stuff anymore.
Okay.
But he's been so good. He's been so consistent. He's a great guy. And everyone tells me you got to read Perfect 10. It's so good. I love the art. Pal Rodrigues is great. But yeah, I just haven't gotten to it yet. Man, there's so many people out there who are awesome.
Have you read Irene Strakowski's work of Fiendish? Okay.
Yes, I love Fiendish. I like fantasy. I'm big on fantasy, and people try it and doesn't always work. I did actually kind of like a read through of book 1 and book 2, and the improvement from the first book to the second book is crazy. So like I'm expecting something monumental with the third book from her. I've been like sitting backstage with her. She's just inking something in an hour, the most amazing piece ever. Just like whips it out. I'm like, yeah, she's crazy.
Because you were also featured on a poll that was started by Geeky Borders, actually. You were there with Dave Brink, Irene, because it was a top comic creators June 2025 poll, essentially for like the decently most known people in the space. You were there with all these other people, honestly, which is crazy.
Yeah, look, I mean, people like the Lucent. I'm very happy about that.
Even John's Longbox is there. Oh god, John's ego's gonna go through the roof. Fucking bastard.
Yeah, no, I did see that poll. I guess that's just Geeky Borders' favorite indie guys. Even Ripper was on there as well.
Yeah,
I think I went higher than Ripper, which was interesting. The dude's made like $3 million this year or something.
It's dirty. Yes, Soul Finder. So you have Soul Finder. That's fucking hell. That's the iconic comic guys. Yeah.
I've read the first 3. They were great. I just never got back to them. Maybe one. I think he's done like 5 or 6 now. Eric Canetti as well. Arc Athena is.
What about
brilliant.
Peter Samedi? I keep hearing his name. He's the guy that does the King Cryptid series, I think.
Yep, I've also got King Cryptid on order as well. It's coming. Okay. I'm waiting. I mean, I feel like I've been waiting a while for that one. I gotta get in touch with Critical Blast, see how much.
Have you ever read Common America? Because I keep hearing Common America is really good. I bought the first 2 omnibuses over there, just haven't had a chance.
I haven't. I got Trump Space Force from them years ago. I just it's not really my thing. I look at it, I'm like, I can't see myself reading it. But people love it, and I'm happy for their success and everything. But it's just not for me. Like it's just some things aren't for you. So, but they do really well.
It's crazy. Someone had said that was a Dungeoneers poll of popularity. I'm like, okay. Well, that's just so cringe. The Dungeoneers.
I didn't even know. I didn't even know what the Dungeoneers is supposed to be anymore. It started out as a joke about people going to a nightclub, and now like people say it, and I'm like, he wasn't even there, so I don't even know what it is anymore.
And the person that initiated it wasn't the person that actually got in trouble because rules for thee, but not for me.
Oh, dude, I was there. We were at a bar at a hotel. And everyone was hanging out. And then, they were like, oh, we're going to this club. I'd already said, I'm 40 at the time, 43 years old. I'm not going to some weird club. I'll hang out here at the bar. So that's what I did. I didn't go. But like, it's like, it is what it is, whatever.
Have you ever met Vaughn Coleman, who does Phenomenova?
Oh, yeah. No, I
met Vaughn too.
Vaughn. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. He good lord, he loves those clubs. Man, it's insane.
Well, he's a young guy,
Yeah, good lord. Meeting Vaughn was cool. I like Vaughn. He's very dedicated to pumping Phenomenova. His first campaign doing $10,000. That is
that was insane. Nuts. I told him before he went live because he said, "Oh, we just passed 500 signups." Like, you got 500 signups on your and you're completely new. Like, this is gonna go gangbusters, and it did. So, that was he's done really well. I think the second one is already out. I think.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, he was at the convention with
Yeah, I
everyone
saw
else.
him at the he was at the Vegas
In his
meetup. We hung
shorts
out.
and his all over print T-shirt.
Lord.
That's
He
a
is.
look.
I think he reminds me of a white guy from a comedy movie that dresses like that, and he ends up getting kidnapped by the main villain, and he ends up like almost getting like killed. That's what he reminds me of.
It was certainly a look. I'll tell you that.
The other,
He had his hair like back. Yeah, you know.
The other thing that you mentioned earlier is writing. I think writing is what hurts a lot of people's stuff because people don't actually read the books most of the time, as you've highlighted. But even when they do finally open and read it, they don't even talk about it because they probably weren't satisfied with the quality of the story. So, like, what would you say as like advice for people to make their writing in their comic books stronger? Do you think they do like certain tropes too much, or someone said it was CW level writing? I'm like, oh damn, fuck, that's not good.
Like the weird thing about writing is most people can write, as in they know how to type and they know words, but to actually craft a story and write a narrative and make something that entertains people and want to read, like that is as hard as the art. It may not take as much time to physically do it once you've learned how to do it, but to learn how to do it and know how to do it and then do it consistently and be original and entertaining, that is extraordinarily difficult, which we see in the fact that, yeah, that's where most, as you would expect, indie comics really fall flat on their face. And there's no correlation between how much money you raise or the quality of the art and the quality of the writing. It is all over the place. Like there's been campaigns that have raised hundreds of thousands of dollars that are unreadable. And on the flip side, there's campaigns with really terrible art that make hardly any money and the writing has been superb. So the only thing I can advise on that is to write, and don't just like jump into comics and the first thing you ever write and that's your comic. It's going to be unreadable. I wrote at least 150,000 words while I was learning to write, and I was devouring creative writing books and videos and studies and everything. And it was a long period of polishing and working and understanding what writing is and storytelling is and everything before I even got anything that I felt like, okay, I can show this to someone. And even then, it probably wasn't great. And I got an editor, and the editor helped polish what I had. And, so you work with the editor because they are looking at it from a reader's perspective. I think that's where like a lot of people just aren't doing that in the indies, because it costs money and it takes time, and maybe they have an ego or whatever. But I truly believe that the story, like I said, people aren't necessarily fans of indie comics, but everyone is a fan of a good story.
They are, that's true.
So when a good story comes out, The Walking Dead, it just takes off. Harry Potter takes off. There's so many examples when a good story comes out and it becomes this cultural event. They're very rare, but you don't have to make the best story in the world. Like if you can get like a few thousand people invested in your story, you're set. You've made it. You've got it. But like that's the hard part.
And we're going to wrap it up here in just a minute. Last few things I'll ask you is, do you have anything planned coming up that you would like to let the audience know about?
Yes, in 1 week, exactly. I'm launching a book. Now, it's the third book that I'm launching, but it's not the third book in the series. There's been a little bit of confusion there. I'm launching a prequel comic book. So it's a 36-page prequel to the main story. I've hired another artist to draw it, Rod Looper, and I'm doing the coloring. I wrote the story. I'm doing the coloring, and we'll be going live in a week on actually the 27th. So 6 days over on my website, thelucidcomic.com. And if you sign up to the mailing list, which you can on that website, on day one, you can get the comic for $10, which is $5 off the regular price.
That's awesome. Hell yeah. So at one point, will you be swapping out your main character for a black female and then having her talk down to all the male characters? Because we know adventure's going to happen.
She's a redhead, so it's like she's already like targeted, not if I can help it. No.
Good Lord. Gosh,
unless
we're
they
gonna
go
do all
senile.
new. Was it all new, all different Lucent? There you go.
Yeah, yeah. We'll wait the Netflix adaptation. Yeah.
Good lord, because like on your YouTube channel, do you have any other videos you want to do as well? Because I know you were reviewing like comic books as well from the
Yeah,
mainstream.
I had to sort of put that on pause just because I got too busy with art stuff. Mostly, look, you want to come to my channel and sub. It's going to be mostly art, comic book art related stuff, a little bit of promotion of other indie guys, and just a little bit of chatter about the scene and everything. I try and steer away from gossip and drama and stuff like that, which means my ratings go down a bit. But that's just that's what I want to do. But you kind of like the group that are there are super passionate about comics, indie comics, and crowdfunding and everything. Thankfully, they're passionate about what I'm making as well. And yeah, we have a fun time over there.
Yeah, I think that also needs to be something that a lot of people work on too. Like talking about the recent drama is what it's a natural thing a lot of people are going to do. It's just how we're wired as people. We're going to talk about the most recent drama, but I think people focusing and harping on it every single day is like getting ridiculous at the
and I think that's like where I kind of draw the line as well. I don't mind, like I know I used to do as well. You just talk about what's the latest thing that's happening.
Yeah, that happens.
But to stick with it and go over and over and over again, it kind of like it sort of becomes its own thing, and you're just feeding the beast. And I've tried almost everything on my channel. I talked about Barbie and race swapping and everything, got millions of views. And and I was like, I don't see myself doing this going into the future. And I've done streams on Star Trek that got 5 people watching. So it's like I've done everything. I just want to like enjoy comics, talk about art, talk about what I'm doing, and just have fun. And whatever happens out of that is what happens. I'm at that point. I've been doing it like 5 or 6 years now, so I'll be over there doing that.
There was one person that did lay out a comment. It was when you had your video that was 5 ways to make and sell indie comic books. I'm pretty sure you've had enough success to give people advice on that. And you had a comment that went like, do you really think you're in a position to tell anyone how to make and sell indie comic books when you've totally dropped the bag when it came to CG Kings? Dumbest thing I think to do. You made a huge mistake that'll take years to recover from. I wish you the best, but I would not take advice from you.
Well, I hope whoever left that comment backs. I find it curious.
Super tribalistic, cult-like. Fucking hell, man.
No, like Ethan built his channel. He built up his thing. He's got his show. All I ask is that, be cool with me trying to do the same thing. I'm trying to build up my channel. I don't have I don't have his pedigree. I don't have his background. I don't have like 30 years working in the mainstream, being a figurehead, like all that sort of stuff. So it's like, but I want to be sort of like the person who's guiding my own future, like I've gotten tons of promotion from those guys, and I say to this day I am forever grateful for that. They're like, they took a chance on a nobody like me who just said, hey, I got this book. They put me in front of thousands of people, and it was great. But it comes to a point where you're like, I can't be reliant on others and like what they're doing at all times. I gotta like try and make something for myself,
especially if you don't agree. And I own. Especially when like you don't agree on something and you want to voice your opinion about it, and then people feel like they got backstabbed, or they feel like you betrayed them for just voicing your opinion. When
I've seen that a lot. Even like really, it happened to my friends. Like, really milk toast opinions.
Yeah, really just like nothing burgers. Dragged. Yeah,
and I'm just like, I'm not cool with that. I think that's like a sleazy thing to do. So but like I said, I'm very laissez-faire. You do what you do, and cool. I'm gonna be here doing what I do. And like there are thousands of indie comic creators who are not CG Kings.
True.
And they're doing just fine. So like, and they got to where they are by just doing their thing, putting out books, making art, building up their audiences the way they want to do it. And I think everyone should be free to, like, you know, Comicsgate should be about freedom in comics. And you know,
not like cult mentality where it's like you criticized him, so that must mean you're. It's like what people do when they do that thing of like, hey, I like waffles. Then the person goes, so you must just hate pancakes. Where the fuck did you even get that from? I never even
that's
said
the
that.
internet. I found that's the internet. That's why I'm always a bit reticent to give my opinion on things now.
Because when you say one thing, they just assume you don't like the other. It's so cringe. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's even just like, hey, I don't hate Eric July. Actually, I got nothing against the guy. Oh my God, you've betrayed something. It's like, no, I was just, anyway, it is what it is.
Well, last thing I'll ask you is, do you have any shout outs you want to give to anyone in particular and anything else you want to say before we head out?
Shout outs. Yeah, shout out to, oh, damn. Shout out to my chat. How about that? The guys who come out to my show day in, day out when they do it. Those guys are awesome. I got a good crew over there. So thank you for that.
Yeah, it's awesome talking to Michael Bancroft for the first time. Talk to definitely an Australian guy out there. Guys, they have crocodiles, great white sharks, snakes, kangaroos. Have you
Thankfully not in here.
Have you fist fought a kangaroo before? Are you secretly Kangaroo Jack? Actually,
I've patted a kangaroo. They didn't look like they wanted to fight me, thankfully.
Good Lord. I told you this. You're most likely going to run into a damn snake before you run into a shark. Just saying.
I have been walking home and run into snakes, yes. Actually, the last snake I ran into, I recognize it because it's important to know your snakes around here. It's the second most venomous snake in the world.
Oh,
I was about 2 yards away from it.
So the black mamba is the most venomous. The second one, I think, I forgot what it's called.
The black mamba is the most dangerous.
Right.
Because it's aggressive and it lives in highly populated areas.
True.
The most venomous is in Australia. It's in the middle of nowhere where no one goes. This one, it is around people, but it's extremely timid and it just runs away. So it's not super dangerous, but if you were to step on it accidentally and it bit you, you would be in a world.
Is it the one where I think it's the one type of snake that's in Brazil, this like island next to Brazil, where like it's all popular. It's like basically an island of snakes where if it bit you, your skin would start decaying.
Yeah, we have them too. We have spiders like that as well.
I tell people this: if there's a PDFs, confirmed PDFs, drop them all in that island that's full of snakes. I'm just saying, that's what I would do. You know, if you like grip a kid, drop you there. All right, you touch this kid, that's awesome. Now you're gonna live with the snakes. Fend for yourself.
Snake Island.
Yeah, a snake is so deadly. It bites you literally like Baragon from Bleach. It like decays your skin. It's actually insane. Snakes are literally from hell. I'm not religious, but snakes are literally from hell.
Luckily, most of the snakes here are very like reclusive. They're not aggressive, and because they're going to keep themselves. They're highly venomous, but they keep to themselves.
Oh gosh. Well, thank you guys for checking out this episode of the MSK Show. It was great to talk to Michael Bancroft for the first time. Hopefully he comes on the show again, a couple months from now on to a year to see his progress on what he thinks about the indie comic book space, because it's always ever changing. Literally tomorrow, after this is up, someone's going to be like, I like milk. And then it's going to blow up.
That's how it goes.
I like chocolate milk. So you must hate white people, obviously. It's like, what? How did you come to that conclusion? But yeah, hopefully you guys have a great week. Hopefully you guys have a great rest of your weekend, and we will see you guys later.